Morning, everyone. My name is Nelly, and I'm going to be your MC for today. Our next talk is going to be with Fabien Fage, a solutions architect here at MongoDB. Fabien is a computer nerd born and raised in Puerto Rico. He taught himself how to program at the age of 13 and has continued to evolve his skill set as the years have passed. Fabien has advanced his skills to the point where he feels confident that he can solve any IT problem, given the right amount of time and resources. Fabien loves to solve problems using technology and has had the opportunity to work with organizations of all sizes, from local small businesses to large multi-billion-dollar organizations. Please give a warm welcome to Fabien, everyone.
So Jamstack and MongoDB Atlas, how we turned 5 days into 5 minutes. I'm sure at one point or another we've all been part of a team that had a slow, tedious process that was difficult for all parties involved. While everyone knows the process is not efficient, nobody actually takes the time to change the process, perhaps because of lack of technical knowledge, server provisioning, maintaining those servers, and the costs associated with those, right? My name is Fabien, and I'm a solutions architect here at MongoDB. I've been developing software since I was 12 years old and have been working with companies of all sizes. Most of my career was in the Department of Defense doing classified work. A few years ago, I decided to move into the private sector and have been doing consulting for companies of all sizes, from small mom and pop shops to big organizations like Disney. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how we use Atlas and app services to automate our processes, and how you could potentially use Atlas and app services in your own teams. So first, the agenda. I'll start by describing the problem that we were facing and why it needed to change. Then I'll talk a little bit about how we used automation and app services to fix that problem. Then I'm also going to be telling you a little bit about the developer data platform and the things that you could leverage, and some of my favorite features of the platform. Then I'll be talking about some of the other projects where we've leveraged Atlas and app services and some of the things that we've been building internally, and as well as share some next steps that you guys could take to optimize your own internal processes. So first, the problem. The problem we were facing is that we were using a third-party system to gather information, Google Forms. I'm sure everyone's seen it before, right? So we had this form system that would get submitted, and after that form submission, it would fall into the manager's inbox. And now, as you can imagine, a lot of things can go wrong with an email-based process, right? The inbox could be cluttered, notifications could be missed, etc. Not only that, the manager, after you receive the email in the inbox, he would have to get the information from the request and then go manually to each of the individual teams and figure out how to coordinate the next steps of the approval process. And to clarify, the approval process was like the credits for POCs that you would need. Like if you wanted to do a POC concept in Atlas, right, and it was going to cost money, you needed to put in the request through this system. And it was a very manual process that could end up taking 5 days. The key problem areas that we were facing were siloed systems, a lack of visibility in each one of these steps, and no automation in sight. So how did we solve this? The recipe is a recipe that applies pretty much to most problems, right? You got to figure out, you clearly define the rules of approval so that you can automate the process. Without a clearly defined rules of automation, then you can't fully automate it, right? Then you needed to make sure you have all the data points required for the automation to be successful. And then you needed a way to provision the solution securely without having to, worry about maintenance and stuff like that. How did we solve that? Jamstack and Atlas App Services. For those of you who don't know, JAM stands for JavaScript, APIs, and Markup. So the first step that we did was we clearly defined the rules of automation using Jira Automation. Then we needed to make sure that we had available all the required data points for said automation to succeed. For that, we use triggers. In MongoDB, in Atlas App Services, we have this concept of scheduled triggers, which is basically a replacement for cron jobs, if you think about it. It lets you execute functions at a predefined time, right? And after we had all that data into this one single view, Then we needed a way to actually kind of replicate what was happening with Google Forms, right? Another way where you can gather the information from the user. And then, so what we did here was actually use the static hosting component of Atlas App Services. So we built a React app, just a regular old website, and then we used the static hosting component, and we needed a way to lock it down as well. And there's another component in App Services that's for authentication. So we use Google Authentication to secure the website all within the same ecosystem. And to put it all together, we needed the APIs, right? And in Atlas App Services, we call them functions and endpoints. So what we did was build a serverless function that would go ahead and gather all the data points from the form and combine them with all the data points that we had in our single view, all within the same environment. And with all these data points, it would send an API request back to Jira and create an issue with all the required data points for automation to succeed. The managers would be notified automatically. It included the organization chain, so they knew who to talk to next. And within certain rules of automation, like for example, depending on the cost and the teams associated with that, we were able to completely automate the process from turning that request in the website and sending it into Jira, and everything just automatically happening, right? And how that actually, and that's how we ended up turning a 5-day process, from very manual manager involvement, right, to a fully automated solution. Some of my favorite features of the MongoDB Developer Data Platform include GraphQL, which is an alternative to REST and lets developers construct requests that pull data from multiple sources into one single request. Schedule triggers, which I've personally been using as a full-on replacement for cron jobs. I haven't written a cron tab in a very long time. And some really cool experiments that I've done with schedule triggers as well let you think of the solution of bringing ETL processes all into MongoDB Atlas. So you could do API calls like, for example, WordPress JSON, or I built a schedule trigger that would go ahead and pull the cryptocurrency current price, and then I could also, using different API systems like Coinbase Pro and stuff like that. So anything that has an API integration, you can play with on schedule triggers, pull data from an API integration and bring it into Atlas. It's really cool stuff. Another feature that I like a lot is the function dependencies, which lets you leverage node modules within your Atlas environment. A lot of the other serverless platforms don't really let you do that. Like, you have to play by their rules in the serverless functions. And here the cool part is you can write your code in Node and using modules like Axios or whatever packages you like, and include them as dependencies in your serverless environment. Atlas Search is included because you're already on Atlas. So you get all the benefits of Atlas Search and the MongoDB Atlas just by leveraging app services. And some of the other cool features are like the data API, device sync, and much more. So some of the things that I like to bring up as well, a little cool fact, this was all built within like 60 days of my first day at MongoDB, and is still used globally today, and has added very little cost, if any. Sounds too good to be true, right? All these features, what's the catch? There is no catch. MongoDB doesn't require a credit card for you to build a free forever cluster. Atlas App Services has a really generous free tier, and none of the apps that I've built for my team of solutions architects have added any significant costs, but have definitely added significant value. Here are some of the other tools that I've built for the SA org. MLocus is actually one of my favorite projects. If you're familiar with Locust, the load testing platform, then you're already familiar with MLocus. What we did here is build, again, a React front end, lock it down with authentication, and use APIs and endpoints to do the magic stuff. And what happens behind the scenes is that we provision a distributed load testing environment in GCP, all within a website that's hosted right there in App Services, right? And that, we actually use it for POCs very often to show how how MongoDB scales, right? And we could do load tests there and kind of see it happen live. Another one of my favorite projects is SCR and SC360. This is how in the Southeast, my particular team, you request a resource from my team. It basically applies a weighted round robin algorithm to make sure that we have equal work distribution amongst the SAs, the solutions architects. And managers use it today to kind of make sure that we're all getting equal distribution of workload. And we abstracted out all the commonalities between these different apps and turned it into this thing called Common Services, which is basically an internal API that lets other teams leverage the stuff that we've already, this single view of each one of our members, right, our team members. So these have been some of the projects that me and my team have been doing internally to improve our processes. It has added very little, very minimal cost, and has added very significant value. My question to you guys is, what will you guys build with MongoDB Atlas App Services, and how can you guys leverage the Atlas in general? Thank you for your time, and I can take some questions as well if you guys have any. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fabian. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to run over to you. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah. So with the free tier, how does security works if you're moving your organization data around?
So with the free tier, it would work the same way that it works in general. Like in the serverless environment and in Atlas, this is the cool part about leveraging the serverless ecosystem of Atlas, right? How it works is the same security that you get with Atlas is the same security that you're going to get. You don't have to manage and patch servers. You don't have to worry about provisioning or any of those costs. So there is a security tab that I could like point you to, but basically the same security that Atlas already has is included in App Services, right?
Any other questions? All right. Oh, looks like over here. I'm going to run over to you. I'm going to come around. I'll just hold it for you.
Yeah, I just have a question regarding local development and debugging. Just wondering, is it easier to do that with this kind of serverless architecture than traditionally? Because, for example, I think a lot of developers like to open our code in VS Code or WebStorm, then put a debugger, then make trigger some event, then kind of rinse through our code one by one. Mm-hmm. And then if everything looks good locally, when we can push it to production. I wonder.
So that isn't currently a feature that we support at the time. And what I do to get around that is build it in a way where I can code it as a node function using just plain old Node or my favorite modules like Axios, and not using like the Atlas specific http.get, like not using their thing, writing it in a Node fashion, right? Because now it's just Node, and that I can do offline. So that's what I've been doing, but it's definitely coming, and we're working on making the development experience in general for this serverless platform a lot more better in the future. So.
Any other questions? All right, please give another round of applause for Fabian. Thanks.